Namo tassa bhagavato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dhammang saranang gacchami, Sanghang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Dutiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Buddhang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Dhammang saranang gacchami, Tatiyampi Sanghang saranang gacchami. So friends, welcome to this Wednesday evening Sutta class. And this evening we're going to be going over again some more suttas from the Anguttara Nikaya. This time it's in the Book of the Tens. I sent out brief numbers of them, although I'm sorry I didn't have the ability to actually put the texts up on an attachment or a link. But these suttas, if you have Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation of the Anguttara Nikaya, the Book of Tens, this first sutta is on page 1395. Now these are fairly short suttas, but they just address a few things that you don't always kind of come across in kind of the general teachings or the sutras that are most commonly talked about and so on. And this first sutta is actually addressed to when the Buddha was visiting his native village in Kapilavastu. In his native clan was the Sakyans. And that's why he is called a Sakyamuni. In Tibetan Buddhism, they often, address or call the Siddhartha Gautama as a Shakyamuni Buddha, because he was the Muni of the Sakyan clan. So he was there visiting, and a number of these Sakyan lay people came to the Buddha, and after paying homage to him, sat down to one side. And then the Buddha asked them a question. Said, Sakyans, do you observe the Uposatha complete in the 8 factors? Now, he's replying to the Uposatha observance. That means on the full moon day especially, and often also on the new moon day, but primarily on the full moon day, the lay people or the more dedicated ones undertake the Uposatha, and there's the 8 precepts that people observe on the Uposatha. A lot of you are familiar with them, but I'm just going to remind you that they are the abstain from taking life, abstaining from stealing, abstaining from actually on Uposatha day, instead of just abstaining from sexual misconduct, it's abstaining from any kind of sexual indulgences. So basically keeping celibacy on the Uposatha observance day, and abstaining from false speech, and abstaining from the intoxicating drinks and drugs causing heedlessness. So basically, those are the 5 regular precepts that people normally follow, or Buddhists should follow, except for the more strict interpretation of sexual misconduct. That means observing in celibacy, or abstaining from any type of sexual activity. And then the 3 extra precepts of abstaining from eating after noon, and abstaining from engaging in entertainments and singing and dancing and watching theatrical shows and wearing garlands and perfumes, cosmetics, and basically, indulging in various types of entertainments, because the day is ideally devoted to more meditation practice. And so these are part of the 8 monastic precepts. And the last one is abstaining from using high and luxurious seats and beds. So again, it's just for that one day. So these the lay people are supposed to observe the total abstinence from any type of sexual activity, whether it's with their lawful wife or anybody else. But and then abstaining from eating after noon, and then the others, as I mentioned, abstaining from the entertainments and wearing garlands and decorating oneself. So these are the kind of precepts you observe when you go to the monasteries normally, or you go on retreats, especially to monasteries like, when I know many of you have been to the Bhavana Society, and they have you take the 8 precepts there, or when people are staying at the Bhavana Society, and virtually so many other monasteries also. So anyway, he's asking these lay people, if you observe the Uposatha complete in the 8 factors, because sometimes people like to play a little games with it or find loopholes, and they say, well, I only want to observe 7 of the 8 factors. Maybe they want to eat it at night, so they say, I'll take them all except that, or I'll take them all except maybe some of the others. So the Buddha was kind of not in favor of practicing them only partly. So anyway, so he asked them if they're observing it in the complete way. And then their answer is, sometimes we do, Bhante, and sometimes we don't. So the Buddha, and the Buddha's reply to that is, it's your misfortune and loss, Sakyans, when life is endangered by sorrow and death. You observe the Uposatha sometimes, and sometimes you don't. And then he gives them a little analogy. He says, what do you think, Sakyans? Suppose there was a man here who, lived a decent life, and he didn't do anything unwholesome, and he would do his daily work and earn some menial wage, or he even might earn more money. Just like even nowadays, the average person, they might work a job that gets minimum wage and barely can exist. And then there's others who have well-paying jobs and make, thousands a month and so on. So he's saying, but even if some person works a menial wage and just gets by enough to barely exist, he says, would that suffice for calling this person a clever and enterprising man? And they said, yes, Bhante. because at least he did get a job and he can at least scrape by and exist, you know, in a way, maybe support his wife or so on. And then he asked them, suppose there was a man who, you know, again, leads a decent life, doesn't harm others, doesn't do any bad things, and he might earn a little bit more money. And he keeps on asking this question over and over several times. And he's saying, suppose a man made 1,000 kapahanas. They're using the term kapahana in there, but let's say the equivalent of $1, let's say. So there's some people that, you know, even, you know, make hundreds of dollars an hour, or some people, right? And, you know, so he went down this list, you know, making $5 an hour, $10 an hour, $100 a day, you know, or, you know, $100,000 a year, and up to 10 million. So he went through all these different, you know, these people earning this money. And then he repeats the phrase, would that suffice for calling this person a clever and enterprising man? And they say, yes, Bhante. And then he says, well, what do you think? On account of his wealth, because of his wealth, this rich person who was making, you know, the most, by reason of that wealth, could that man experience exclusively happiness for one day or one night or half a night or half a day? That means, could this rich person dwell in exclusive happiness? And the Buddha is referring to like staying in a jhana without any negative thought or any desire coming into their mind for a whole night or a whole day or even a half a night or a half a day. He's asking if this kind of rich persons, lay persons, could enjoy that kind of happiness. And they say, no, Bhante. And then the Buddha asks them, why not? Because sensual pleasures are impermanent. They're empty, vain, false, and deceptive. And basically he's assuming that any rich person is going to indulge in sensual pleasures and, you know, have an extra mistress on the side, you know, enjoying going out to restaurants and eating fine foods and doing all these things. I mean, that's the assumption. And probably 90% of people like that would do that, where we can see that happening, you know, in our life. So even in the Buddha's day, these kind of things were going on. And then the Buddha says, okay, Sakyans, but my disciple who dwells heedful and ardent, like my monk disciples who dwell heedful or ardent, or my disciples that follow strictly the uposatha and doing it, you know, both on the new moon as well as the full moon, or maybe even on the quarter moons, and observing the uposatha in all complete in all the 8 factors. But he was mainly referring to monks, but we can extrapolate that to, you know, even assume people that are practicing the uposatha, because that's what this original question was about, right? So it said, so my disciples practicing ardent and resolute for 10 years, instructing them as I teach them, following my advice and teachings, like observing all this Vinaya and the precepts and practicing meditation, they might experience exclusive happiness for 100 years, or 1,000 years, or 10,000 years, or 100,000 years, and 10 million years. So the Buddha is telling them that my disciples who follow my teachings, even for just 10 years, could experience exclusive happiness for 10 million years. Now, of course, in that he's referring to people that have can attain the formless jhanas, and people that are reborn in like the realm of infinite space, infinite consciousness, or the pure abodes, somebody like anagamis, once returners or anagamis. If they're born into those formless realms, the lifespan is millions, can be millions of years in some of the highest ones. So that's what he's referring to when he said they can dwell. It means they don't dwell in their house for that long. That means they've been reborn into these celestial realms where the lifespan is that long. And then once that lifespan is over, they may come back to the human realm if there were a once returner, or if they were a never returner, they would attain final nibbana right from there. So anyway, so he's saying those who practice for 10 years could experience that kind of happiness. And that means in order to be reborn in those places, you'd have had to master those states of meditation even while, living on the human level, And then he says, let alone 10 years, my disciple who dwells in this way for just 9 years, and then he repeats all that. And then he says, let alone 9 years, 8 years, let alone 8, he goes to 7, then to 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 year. One practices for 1 year as I instruct them. They might experience this exclusive happiness for all these times, or even in the life. They could, you can attain, once you master a jhana, you can stay in it for a day or a night, or even 2 days and a night. Some of those jhana attainments, even while on the earth, if you master it. And then after 1 year, let alone 1 year, he tells them, my disciple who dwells heedful, ardent, and resolute for 10 months. Then he goes to 9 months, 8 months, 7 months, 6 months, goes all the way down to 1 month, and then down to 2 weeks. And then he says, let alone 2 weeks, Sakyans, my disciple who dwells like this, ardent and practicing as I taught them, for just 10 nights, 10 days, could experience this happiness for, days and nights, or, if they're reborn, hundreds of years, uninterrupted bliss. And then he adds to that, and he might be a once returner, a non-returner, or surely a stream enterer. So he says, surely, so he's saying that in order to probably attain that kind of happiness, one would have had to at least be a stream winter. But even a stream winter may not have that kind of concentration that they could attain formless jhana and be reborn in a formless realm where they would have unending happiness for, the duration of that level. So then, having said that, he says, it's your misfortune and loss, Sakyans, when life is endangered by sorrow and death. You observe the Uposatha only sometimes, complete in 8 factors only sometimes, and sometimes you don't. And then they tell the Buddha then, after the Buddha kind of scolded in this way, he says, from today on, Bhante, we will observe the Uposatha complete in the 8 factors. So that was that, little exhortation to them. So the takeaway from that is that, we shouldn't practice the Dhamma in a hodgepodge way or kind of in a sloppy way. And, the Buddha gave out the teachings, and everything that the Buddha ever said in terms of, practicing various types of meditation and observe sila, samadhi, panya, the 7 factors of enlightenment, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, and attaining the jhanas. These were not to be just pick and choose in practice in a hodgepodge way, or only just some of them, because of that. That's why people don't reach the very highest levels. And I was just talking with somebody today who came here to the Low Center, who's familiar with the way that some people from, and I don't want to step on anybody's toes, so just take whatever I might say with a grain of salt. But he's a Sri Lankan person, and so he was saying that when he was young in Sri Lanka, he saw how some of the people would they go to the temple and they observe eight precepts on the Poya day. So on the Uposatha day, they go to the temple and at 6 o'clock in the morning, and they take the 8 precepts, all those same 8 precepts that I was just talking about. They take them. And the purpose of the Uposatha day is to practice harder than you would normally practice. So that means you're following 5 precepts on a normal daily basis. But then on the Uposatha day, to sacrifice a little bit, you take those 3 extra practices, like not eating at night. So you have to train yourself and give up that desire or craving to want to eat at night, or to indulge in any type of, sexual activity, or to watch shows and dancing and singing and entertainments and so on. So anyway, the people take the 8 precepts, but then at the end of the day, at 5 or 6 o'clock in the PM, they have to go home, and the monks in the temple give them 5 precepts again. So now at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, they take the 5 precepts again. So when they go home, they say, "Oh, I'm not on the 8 precepts. Oh, let me go eat something." And so they may go eat something. Then they may, because of that, they may flop down in their chair and watch some show. And basically, they haven't done anything except stay in the temple for 8 hours, but they haven't done any extra practice in terms of, denying the ego its craving, in terms of wanting to eat or those other things I mentioned. So that is kind of, the Buddha would have frowned on that kind of thing. He would have considered that the kind of, not practicing, because you haven't sacrificed anything really. So it should be for 24-hour period, observing the Uposatha. Ideally, if a person really wants to practice in the spirit of it, it should go 24 hours so that you can experience the effects of not indulging in those extra things for that extra period of time. That's really the whole point in like those practices of the Uposatha. So that's what the Buddha probably was aware that people were doing that kind of thing, or they decided some days they just won't do it. So anyway, now some people will hear that and say, "Oh, the Buddha's too severe." The Buddha wanted the people to attain enlightenment, right? And he knew that if you practice in a half-hearted way, you're going to get half-hearted results out of it. Okay, so again, if any of these things bring up any questions in any of you, you can write them down for the chat room that we will look at the end once I finish these the next 2 suttas. So this next one is in the 51.1 in the Anguttara numbering. It's a few pages later on. It's called one's own mind. And so here the Buddha was addressing the monks in Savatthi. And he said, monks, a monk who is not skilled in the ways of others' minds should train themselves. I will be skilled in the ways of my own mind. It is in this way that you should train yourself. So a lot of people train themselves, they want to read somebody else's mind, or they, always trying to, comment on other people's mind. Oh, that person's angry, that person is jealous, that person this, or trying to read their minds, okay. But the Buddha is saying, no, you read your own mind. Don't be concerned with other people's minds. Be able to read your own mind. Be skilled in the ways of your own mind. And then he says, how is that? And how is a person skilled in the ways of their own mind? So it is just as if a woman or a man, young, youthful, fond of ornaments, they would look at their reflection in the mirror, in a clean, bright mirror, and if they see any dust or blemish, they would say, and they would strive to remove that smudge, maybe a woman smudged their makeup or something, or whatever, and some other dirt, right? So they would want to quickly get rid of that blemish. They will make an effort to remove it. But if they don't see a blemish there, then they will be glad about it and their wish fulfilled. And will think, how fortunate that I'm clean, right? So too, self-examination is very helpful for a monk to grow in wholesome qualities. Now the Buddha may have been addressing monks, but the same thing applies also for lay people. And then he says, after saying self-examination is very helpful, he gives the categories of self-examination. He said, one should ask oneself, am I often given to longing or without longing? That means desire for something or without desire for something. Am I often given to anger or ill will, or am I often without anger or ill will? Am I often overcome by dullness and drowsiness, or free from dullness and drowsiness? Am I often restless or calm? Am I often plagued by doubt or free from doubt? Am I often angry or without anger? Is my mind often defiled or undefiled? Is my body often agitated or unagitated? Am I often lazy or energetic? Am I often unconcentrated or concentrated? So all these things must have been happening like 2,000 years ago, because nobody experiences these now, right? Oh, yes. See, so even people 2,500 years ago have the same problems and states of mind as people now. So that's why Dhamma is timeless, akaliko. It doesn't belong to any time and epoch. Wherever there's a conditioned mind, there'll be these kind of, plagues. So, if by such self-examination, a person knows I'm given to these, I often have these things, I'm not going to repeat them all, then that one should put forth, just as a person whose clothes or head is on fire would put forth extraordinary effort to put out the fire, mindfulness and clear comprehension to extinguish those negative mind states, that should be applied. One should put forth extraordinary effort, enthusiasm, and mindfulness and clear comprehension to abandon those same unwholesome qualities. But if by such self-examination, if the person knows I am often without those things, now, again, it says often, so it doesn't mean you're totally free, because you'd be enlightened if you were totally free from those things. But it means often, so that more than you are not, you would be without those states, negative states. So they should base themselves, if they find that they don't often have those negative states, maybe just once in a while, then they should base themselves on those wholesome qualities and make a further effort to reach the total elimination of those states. So that was just that short exhortation in that way about one's own mind. And I wanted to read one more sutta because it's it's about the ways of understanding, of being aware of your own mind. This is the title of it is Serenity. But he starts out the same way. Monks who is not skilled in the ways of other minds should train themselves. I will be skilled in the ways of my own mind. And then how is one skilled in one's own mind? And again, he gives the example of a woman or man looking in the mirror, and if they see there's some defilement, they make the effort to get rid of it. If they see there's no defilement and their face is clean and bright, then they would be happy about that and continue keeping themselves clean. And so, again, he repeats, self-examination is very helpful for a person to grow in wholesome qualities. And then he asks him, this is the inquiring, do I gain internal serenity of mind or not? Do I gain the higher wisdom of insight into phenomena or not? So in this particular sutta, the Buddha is asking them, do you gain concentration? Internal serenity means gaining concentration, attaining the jhanas, or not? Or do you gain the insight into phenomena that you can gain without necessarily going through all the jhanas? You can gain certain amounts of insight even without attaining, at least the higher jhanic levels. So that's the question in this. So you're examining your own mind, but hardly people who don't practice Dhamma, they never consider their mind like that. Anyway, so if by such examination a person knows I gain internal serenity of mind, but not the higher wisdom of insight into phenomena. Because again, that can happen. People that practice jhana and serenity, they can get so attached to that they don't want to go out and start practicing vipassana. They don't want to start looking at impermanence and examining their pains and this and that, And so a lot of people, they get stuck in the blissful effects of the jhana states and don't go on to become sotapanna and so on, to develop insight into anatta, anicca, dukkha, and anatta. So a person should base themselves on that internal serenity, but not getting stuck on it, make the effort to gain the higher wisdom of insight into phenomena. Then sometime later, he gains both internal serenity of mind and the higher wisdom of insight into phenomena. And with that, it assumes that there would be attaining and sotapanna, entering the stages of enlightenment. But if by such self-examination, the person knows, I gain the higher wisdom of insight, but not internal serenity of mind. So in the same way, that person should then base themselves on the insight, the higher wisdom of insight, and then, but then go back or then make the effort to attain the serenity of mind. That means to attain the jhanas. Because you can attain a certain amount of insight into phenomena without the jhanas, but it won't be to the extent of being able to reach the levels of enlightenment. So, you can gain a certain amount of insights just practicing ordinary mindfulness and vipassana, and get insights even into no self, some tastes of that, but it probably won't develop to the level of entering the stream until one has at least gained the first jhanic level of concentration, where the five hindrances would be suppressed enough to make that kind of penetration, and especially the understanding of no self. So that's what the Buddha is basically saying, that if one has internal serenity but not the insights yet, you must, based on that serenity, develop the insights that gain the levels of entering the stream and so on, the higher levels. And if you've gained that, if you just do what is often termed called dry vipassana or sukha vipassana, or just practicing the four foundations of mindfulness, but maybe not developing all the way through the factors of enlightenment, so you're gaining some insights, but if you haven't attained the internal serenity, then make the effort to attain that, so that, enlightenment happens when both the internal serenity and the insight are balanced and they're supporting each other. The insight helps you maintain that jhanic level of concentration, and the jhanic level of concentration keeps the mind clear enough to make that insight penetrating deeper and deeper. And so that's why, those things are not one or the other, although they could be practiced that way, but that's not the way the Buddha encouraged people to practice it. So they have to be, they're mutually supportive and balance each other. And if one then has both the internal serenity and the insight into phenomena, then they should base themselves on those same wholesome qualities and make a further effort to reach the destruction of the taints. So that means if by balancing serenity and insight, or mindfulness and concentration and wisdom, to reach Sotapanna, don't be happy with just reaching Sotapanna. Make the effort to keep going to reach the other levels of, liberation, mental liberation. And then there's another part of this sutta. He kind of changes direction now, and he says robes here, but for lay people they could understand it just being clothing. So he says clothing or robes or clothing are twofold: clothing to be used, and that kind of clothing not to be used. And food also, there's certain types of food should be used, other types of food should not be used. And he says lodgings too, where you live. Some places should not be used as lodgings. Some places should be used as lodgings. And he said, then he goes on to say, villages or towns. Some villages or towns should be lived in, others should not be lived in. And then countries or regions should be lived in or not be lived in. And then finally he says, persons too, I say, are twofold. Those to be associated with and those not to be associated with. So he goes through all these different lists of the ordinary things that we do every day. And so there are some things that should be used or associated with and some that should not be. And so we've heard this also, these kind of instructions in other suttas too. And basically it means, for whatever reason, if you're eating a certain kind of food and it increases your greed, or it increases your sleepiness after eating too much, or it gives you some other types of indigestion, then you shouldn't eat that kind of food. But if the food you eat gives you enough energy to practice and doesn't cause you to develop craving and attachment for more or for more sweeter, delicious food, if it's just some basic, sustenance that keeps you well and so on, then use that, but without using it. So not to let use these things that increase our lust or greed or attachment or causes some other types of problems. So then he goes on to say the same thing in terms of lodging, where we live, what kind of a house you live in, what kind of kuti you're using. You could get greedy and attached to the kuti, or get prideful of it, and this and that. So the Buddha is always, alert for these kind of things, or whatever we're doing. Those are all the criteria. Whatever you're doing, using, eating, listening to, watching, if it increases unwholesome states in you, you should give that up. But if it decreases the unwholesome states and increases wholesome states, then you could use those. And then even in terms of like the persons that you associate with. Like, he often said, don't associate with foolish people, but associate with the wise persons for the same reasons. So that was included in that same sutta. So basically that was the end of those instructions. So now let's see if there's any further comment or some questions about those. Seems to be maybe one chat in here, I'm not sure about. What is that? There's somebody who put a negative word on there. Is that a bomb? See, you're telling me what won't happen.
Just like if people want to unmute, they have to raise their hand. We won't let people unmute. Just like that.
Okay. Yeah. See, so this person who made this, put up this unpolite word is. See, they weren't looking at their mind, and they were just following their mind without mindfulness, and then they do some offensive language. Anyway, so if you want to ask a question by the mic, you can unmute yourself.
No, they cannot unmute. They have to raise their hand.
Or you have to raise your hand, and Prashant will unmute you. Okay, here's another question. What do you mean by phenomena? The higher wisdom into phenomena, that means understanding the nature of the five aggregates. All phenomena are included in one of those five aggregates. Material phenomena, feelings are phenomena, mental states are phenomena, mental objects are phenomena, earth, water, fire, air, the four elements are phenomena. Basically, it means insight into the way our mind functions and how it creates the world. So phenomena means basically everything that's not nibbana is basically a phenomenon. So, it's a very loaded word, phenomena means. But in this instant, with this sutta, it's referring to your mind, how your mind works, insight into the nature of how your mind is anicca, dukkha, and anatta. Even our ego is a phenomena. It's a mental phenomena. It appears, as something that affects us. So, get insight into that. What is the nature of this ego, this I? People are always saying, I, me, mine. What is it? What's it made of? Where does it come from? No one knows. That's what the Buddha is saying. Get insight into it. Get insight into the nature of suffering. And all the Buddha's teaching is about that.
There's Kumudni wants to ask you a question.
Okay. Kumudini,
Yes.
you want to ask a question?
Yes, I do. I have a
Okay.
question regarding the Uposatha days, not eating. I have a gastric condition that I cannot stay without eating in the nights. And even when I do go to Goenka retreats and spend 10 days, I ask for some little something to eat in the night because I get really sick. So is that a bad thing? Otherwise, I will not be able to continue with the meditation. So that's a question that I wanted to ask you.
Well, there's always been exceptions for people that are sick, especially with a medical condition, like let's say low blood pressure and things like that, that if they don't have something, every so often, they'll get something. Now, so there are exceptions made for that. So anyway, the whole point is about greed. Is that these people that are probably mentioning they go home and eat, it's not that they're sick and they're going to die or get violently ill if they don't eat. They're just feeling a little hungry. Oh, let me eat. I don't have a precept now. No, I can do anything I want. See, that's the point. You see.
No, it is not with that intent. It's purely for
right. What you've explained probably it's not that intention. You would like to do it if you weren't feeling this
yes.
sickness, probably.
In fact, the very first time I did that, and I was very sick afterwards, after the retreat. So after that, I didn't. I got permission and ate some small something in the nights.
That might have happened. Maybe try it again one time and see. Maybe your body's changed. Maybe you wouldn't get sick the next time.
Now I'm too old for that.
You never know.
That's true.
You never know until you try, right? You'll see.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we'll go ahead and wrap that up because it's already, we want to have our time. Is there another question? Okay, let's see. That's to Prashant, it says. Okay, this comment by somebody, should I read it?
Michael.
Or you can read it. It says, in the suttas, it's written that enlightenment can be attained by acquiring samadhi and vipassana, but it can be achieved by attaining vipassana alone. So does it really matter that much if samadhi isn't attained? Well, it depends on what you mean by vipassana, because people can use the word vipassana, and, it can mean different things to different people. But if if you're really practicing vipassana, you will attain jhana while practicing the vipassana. So you don't have to practice jhana separately. You attain it as a matter of course while practicing vipassana, because this is outlined very clearly in the 7 factors of enlightenment. When one is practicing the satipatthana, the 7 factors of enlightenment, one gains that insight, but at the end of that insight, one's attained jhana, and that extra power of the concentration gotten while practicing the vipassana acts as an extra octane boost to push the mind through to sotapanna. So you can attain the first stage of enlightenment, but you attain the jhana while practicing vipassana. That's what's overlooked. A lot of people overlook that. You can practice vipassana, but not gain that deep level. But if you want to gain that deep level and attain the sotapanna, let's forget the term jhana. People get confused, but you've got to weaken the 5 hindrances. You've got to overcome the 5 hindrances, and you have to have that applied and sustained thought right on. Otherwise, you're not going to penetrate that deep to pierce the self-view, because the criterion of enlightenment is breaking through the self-delusion, is understanding that the ego is an illusion. And that really can only be understood in the full way if the mind is really concentrated. So it doesn't mean you have to gain all 4 jhanas, but at least, having, attained that level of concentration, which of course the teachers will, might argue that, and there's some teachers that say, oh, you don't need any kind of concentration. Well, lots of luck. Okay, LOL. Let's see how many people have done that without any kind of concentration. People might say, well, Sariputta did it, or something else, but you don't know what kind of concentration these people had. So it means that, but while practicing vipassana, if you're really practicing, especially if you're following the 7 factors of enlightenment, because that's included in Satipatthana Sutta. And the whole Satipatthana Sutta has to be developed. And that's what the Buddha said. This is by practicing the Satipatthana Sutta for 100 years, 10 years, 9 years, 2 weeks, 7 days he went down. If somebody could practice these 4 foundations of mindfulness uninterrupted for 7 days, one could even attain anagamiship or arhatship. At the very least, it's sotapanna. So it means the full satipatthana. And that includes 7 factors of enlightenment, not 6 factors of enlightenment, 7 factors of enlightenment. Or no, 5 factors of enlightenment, because the 6th factor of enlightenment is concentration, which means the first jhana. And the 7th one is the equanimity that comes in actually the 3rd and the 4th jhana, but say equanimity. And then comes the change of lineage and the entering the stream with the destruction of the 3 fetters. So if you really study the suttas and you see that the Satipatthana Sutta at the very beginning, this is the direct way. It doesn't say the only way maybe, but the direct way. But while practicing it, you attain concentration while you're doing that. It's very clear in the 7 factors of enlightenment that you're practicing mindfulness first, and you attain the jhana at the end of that, or just near the end of that, because you're totally concentrated. And that extra concentration at the end is what boosts that. It's like putting high octane gas into the gas tank. Maybe let's say you're using regular, 80 octane fuel, let's say, or, you're meditating with 80 octane in ordinary mindfulness. Oh, rising, falling, thinking, feeling, lifting, bending, touching, anger, kind of, momentary concentration like that. Okay. And it goes along, but while you're doing that, you're able to, oh, sleepy, okay, straighten up. Oh, sense desire, okay, overcome that. And you're applying this mindfulness and right effort to overcome the hindrances. So when those 5 hindrances are overcome, you gain the jhana factors, which is equal to the first jhana. And that's like putting that extra octane, 199 octane, for that last little boost that kind of boosts the mind up through the veil of the ego and attain the final, the enlightenment. Whereas before you can get lots of insights and a taste of no self, but to get that full, complete, burst, that's just where it requires the concentration. Anyway, this could be argued of, to the end of the time by certain individuals, but it requires, when you read the sutras enough and you gain a understanding of them, plus your own practice, then hopefully you'll understand these things by yourself. Okay, so thank you for your questions, and what? Well, I think I don't want to go on more because okay, so friends, let's take a short break and come back in a few minutes for some yoga stretching and the meditation. Okay, friends, so we'll go ahead and start the yoga stretches. Just try to stand straight, relax your arms and hands at the sides. Feel your feet pressing the floor. Feel the height and the weight of the body over the feet. And begin some deep, slow breathing. After breathing in, hold the air in the lungs for 2 or 3 seconds to allow time for the oxygen to get into the bloodstream, and feel the relaxing contraction of the out breath. You combine these movements with that same deep, slow breathing, repeating each one 3 times. So in the next in breath, raise the arms over the head, interlock the fingers, turn the palms up, straighten the arms, stretch your head back, look up at the back of the hands, arch your lower back a little bit. On the out breath, turn the palms down and touch the top of your head. And again, in breath, palms up, straighten the arms, stretch the head back, arch back a little. Feel the sensations. Out breath, turn the palms down, touch the head. Third time, in breath, and hold that upward stretch longer. And release the fingers, the out breath, arms back to the side. Just relax, close the eyes, focus inside, try to feel the subtle pulsations, sensations. Just feel where the clothing rubs against the skin. And just remember standing, the present moment of the body, just letting go of your thoughts. And then next on the next in breath, push up on the toes while raising the hands up over the head like this. Face the palms toward each other about 6 inches apart and stretch. Out breath, come back down, arms to the side, heels to the floor. In breath up. Use the breath to help lift the body. Out. Once more, in. Out. Relax. Just gently close the eyes. Feel the feet pressing the floor. The arms and hands at the sides. Feel some subtle pulsation in your fingers. Feel the clothing touching the skin on different places. This body exactly as it is, here and now. Present moment awareness. Feel the head balanced on top. Remember standing, standing, standing. Okay, next we'll do side bending. On an in-breath, raise both arms up over the head, and keep your fingers and arms straight, parallel to each other. On the out breath, bend over the right side as far as you comfortably can. Feel the stretch in the side. In breath, lift up. And then the other side, out breath. Again to the right, out breath. In, out. Once more to each side, out breath. Lower the arms, out breath, relax. Keep feeling the whole body, the subtle pulsations, other sensations, itching, prickling sensations, or aches or pains. It's all happening within this standing, breathing body. Present moment awareness. And one last simple exercise, the head turning from right to left. On an in-breath, just turn the head to the right as far as you comfortably can. Try to look over the right shoulder. On the out-breath, turn the head 180 degrees back to the left. Concentrate into the neck vertebrae, feeling the vertebrae loosening up. Look over the left shoulder. In-breath back to the right. Out breath left. In breath right. Out breath left. On the next in breath, let the head stop in the center. Just relax. Feel the whole body. Just try to feel that organic aliveness, the subtle vibrations all over the body. Being the activated life force from the deep breathing and the movement. Getting the oxygen out to all the nooks and crannies of the body, mind, nervous system. Activating awareness. Standing. 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 Okay, now come back to our seats. Get ready for the sitting awareness. Okay, friends, I'm going to turn off my video as I normally do, so you're not tempted to want to look at me meditating rather than looking in yourself. So just try to get comfortable with your seat, adjusting the posture. Try to keep the back and the head in a straight line. Relax the shoulders. Just gently close the eyes. Once you place your hands in a certain position, try not to move them during the whole meditation period. Now bring your total attention down to feel where the buttocks press the seat. Feel that sensation of hardness or pressure, that earth element vibration of the buttocks pressing the seat. And then kind of let the mind move down the legs toward the knees, feeling that when the clothing touches the skin of the legs, and going over the knees and down into the lower leg. And bringing the attention down into the first to feel your heels. Try to feel both heels. Try to feel a subtle sensation in the heels. And then the rest of the foot and the toes. Just try to mentally isolate the outline of the feet in the mind's eye. Just feel those subtle pulsations or tingling sensations where the socks touch the skin of the feet. And just remind yourself also of sitting. These feet are on this sitting body. And let the awareness kind of move up a little bit to feel your hands and fingers. Or feel your thumbs and fingers. Feel the subtle pulsations or tingling sensations. These hands are on the sitting body. Now feel the weight of the arms hanging from the shoulders. Relax the shoulders. Feel the sensations where the clothing rubs against the skin of the shoulders and arms. And just remember sitting, sitting. And now feel the head balanced on top of the neck. And check the posture, kind of gently raise, straighten the spine. Feel the head balanced on top of the spinal column, like balancing a soccer ball on a broomstick. Keeping the chin lifted up, level to the floor. That awake posture. Now feel your face. Try to feel the skin stretched over your forehead, or nose, cheeks, chin. As if you were kind of looking at the face from the inside. So those little subtle prickling sensations. And feel the lips touching together. The upper lip touching the lower lip. And feel the sensation of dryness or moistness in the lips. And feel the tongue laying in the mouth. Feel where the tongue touches any teeth. Just the raw sensation. Feel any kind of sensation, urge to want to swallow. And now feel the eyes resting in the sockets, and the eyelids stretched over the eyeballs. Just feel those subtle eye movements. You might feel the blood pulsing in the capillaries of the eyes or eyelids. You might notice some light or color or a mental image or just black darkness. From that point behind the eyes, try to feel the outline of the whole body. Just let the awareness expand slightly. Feel that general outline of the sitting body. Feeling the buttocks and legs or feet pressing the floor. Underneath the arms and hands at the sides or in the center. Clothing touching the skin on different places. The head balanced on top. You should be able to kind of just feel that outline of the sitting body in the mind's eye. Just try to hold that feeling of the sitting body, all those different sensations. Just remember sitting, 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 present moment. And then begin some deep, slow breathing again as you were doing during the yoga exercise. Try to take 2 or 3 seconds to slowly expand your abdomen, rib cage, and upper chest. Hold the air in the lungs for 2 or 3 seconds. Feel that pause and feel the relaxing contraction of the out breath. Just take a few more breaths like that, cultivating this basic mindfulness. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, letting go of the past and future. Breathing out, sitting here and now. Breathing in, feeling the whole body. Breathing out, feeling the whole body. Now we're going to try to count the breaths from 1 to 10 to gain a better concentration. Keep the attention focused on the movements of expanding and contracting. With the next expanding in breath, mentally count 1. Feel the brief pause. With the contracting out breath, count 1. The next incoming breath, 2. The outgoing breath, 2. In breath, 3. Out breath, 3. In breath, 4. Out breath, 4. In breath, 5. Out breath 5. In breath 6. Out breath 6. In breath 7. Out breath 7. In breath 8. Out breath 8. In breath 9. Out breath 9. In breath 10. Out breath 10. Now discontinue the counting. Let the breathing return to its uncontrolled or shorter rhythm. But continue to feel it, to follow it closely with moment-to-moment attention. Just feeling all the subtle movements of the expanding in-breath, the brief pause, the contracting movements of the out-breath, and the brief pause. It's like looking through a magnifying glass, or a microscope. Just make that your primary focus of applied and sustained thought, attention to the present moment. Just remembering, just in sitting, out, sitting. This breathing body is the connection to the present moment. And try to notice how each breath is different. Sometimes longer, sometimes shorter. Sometimes you feel it more in the abdomen, sometimes you feel it more in the chest. Sometimes the in-breath is longer than the out-breath, or the out-breath is longer than the in-breath. It's always changing. It's part of mindfulness of breathing. In sitting, out, sitting. Be alert to feel the brief pauses between the breaths, even if just a fraction of a second. If you're aware of the brief pause between the breaths, then you'll be aware of the next in or out breath. Usually the mind wanders during the pauses. Just keep turning up the power of the mental microscope to notice subtle, finer movement of the breathing process. But at the same time, be alert for thoughts sneaking up into the mind, try to steal your attention away. If you get caught up in thinking, recognize it as thinking. Gently let go of the thought. Just maintain, come back, maintain that connection to the breathing. In, sitting. Out, sitting. Just moment by moment, breath by breath. In the brief pauses between the breaths, just check the posture, if the chin is drooping downwards or the spine is slouching, or just mindfully straighten up. Try to notice subtler and finer detail sensations in the breathing body. Feeling other sensations coming and going in or around the breathing process, or in the larger sitting body. Just feeling the body in the body. It's the breathing body, the breathing process going on within the larger sitting body, the whole body. You find the mind totally lost in thoughts, recognize it as lost, lost. Take a deep breath, bring the mind back into the body. Find the body sitting on the floor here and now. Come back to in, sitting. Out, out, sitting. If there's too many thoughts, when the mind is a little drowsy, come back and do some deep, slow breathing to reoxygenate the blood, help keep the mind grounded, awake in the sitting body. If the mind is calm enough, concentrated enough, and tune in to the flow of impermanence, being awake to how quickly different sensations are arising and vanishing all over the body. Pulsations, prickling sensations, itching sensations, aches or pains, the breathing coming and going. Even noticing thoughts coming and going in the mind. Develop into phenomena, the impermanence, sensations, thought. Try to identify the 5 aggregates. This is material vibration. This is feeling. This is perception. This is thought, volition. This is the ego consciousness. Breathing in, sitting. Breathing out, sitting. Sensations come and go. Perceptions, thoughts come and go. Drowsiness comes and goes. Sounds come and go. These are all just a continuous flow of change and impermanence through this body and mind. Just beneath all that change or chaos or pain, it's the parallel dimension of the now, of present moment awareness. What perceptions or thoughts arise based on that sound contact? Sabbi sankara anicchati yada panyaya pasati atani bindati dukhi Isamagu Visuddhiya. All conditioned things, the five aggregates of this body, mind, and world are impermanent. When one sees this with the eye of wisdom, one becomes disenchanted with suffering. This is the path to purity, to freedom. Thus spoke the Buddha. Now let's spend the last few minutes of the meditations cultivating, sending out thought vibrations of metta, or friendliness towards ourselves and all other beings. So we do this by coordinating with deep, slow breathing again. So start taking some deep, slow breaths. After breathing in, hold the air in the lungs as long as you comfortably can. Feel or imagine that oxygenating blood going out to the cells of the body, which is like sending metta to your own cells of the body. And feel that relaxing contractions on the out breath, the calming of the mind. Just take a few more deep, slow breaths like that, cultivating these basic thoughts. May I be well, peaceful, and wise. May I be free from excessive attachment and greed, anger, hatred, jealousy, fear, ignorance. May I be free from the pain, sorrow, and sufferings of body and mind brought about by such unskillful thought, speech, and action. May I have the patience, strength, mindfulness, and wisdom to meet and overcome all difficulties in life. May I be able to continue to deepen my understanding of the Dhamma in the practice of meditation to help free the mind from confusion and suffering. May I be well, peaceful, and wise. Try to continue to take some more deep, slow breaths, and with each out breath, holding in the breath, and with the out breath, just imagine you sending these same kind of thought feelings toward your other family members, relatives, good friends, people that you work with, people that you've known at different times. Wishing them may they be well, peaceful and wise, free from suffering. And with each out breath, imagine these waves of metta vibrations going further outwards across the fields, through the towns and cities, countryside, eventually across the whole country, across the ocean, eventually surrounding the whole earth. Just with the thought, that may all living beings, wherever they might be well, peaceful and wise, free from greed, hatred, fear, and ignorance, free from self-created sufferings of body and mind, by the karmic sufferings of interactions with others. May all beings have the patience, strength, mindfulness, and wisdom to meet and overcome all difficulties in life. May all beings be able to hear the teachings of the Dhamma, to learn and practice meditation, to help free their minds from confusion and suffering. May all beings be well, peaceful, and wise. May all beings be well, peaceful, and wise. May all beings be well, peaceful, and wise. Now I invite you to begin this meditation. I invite you to join in chanting the word sadhu 3 times slowly. We do the chanting on a long out breath. If you want to hold the hands at the chest, you can. Take a deep, slow breath. Sadhu. Now place your hands at the edge of the knees. Take one more deep breath. You breathe in, pull the hands against your knees. You stretch the head back and arch the lower spine. Then lift the head up, and on an out breath, press the chin to the top of the chest to stretch the neck vertebrae. The chin up level on an in-breath. And relax on the out-breath. Put a smile on your face. Okay, friends. So, hope everyone was able to have a few moments of some peaceful tranquility, or some insights into your nature of the mind. So thank you for joining the program tonight. Remember, mindfulness a day keeps dukkha away. The sutta a day keeps confusion away. And we'll see you again next time. You're on next Sunday, or whenever you're able to join in again. So do your M&Ms every day, pausing to come back to the present moment. Okay. Namo Buddhaya.
Namo Buddhaya. Thank you, Bhante.
And thank you, Bhante.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante. Namo Buddhaya.
Sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, thank you, Bhante.
Okay.